It's February 13th, 1258. Inside the gilded halls of the Abbasid Palace, where Caliph al-Mustasim has ruled for 36 years, something feels wrong. The fountains are silent. In Baghdad, that doesn't happen without reason. This is the city of wisdom, where water usually sings through courtyards, and scholars from 3 continents cross deserts and seas to study in the greatest library on earth. When the fountains go quiet, it's a warning. The end is here. Beyond the palace walls, the Mongol army blankets the plain, a sea of riders from the steppe, men raised without cities or books, who speak one language, conquest. They ride under banners that have already swallowed kingdoms, and they are here to do more than take a city. They are here to make an example so loud the rest of the world will hear it in terror. And what haunts history isn't only that Baghdad falls. It's what happens after the gates break, what is done to the caliph and to his family. The Mongols don't merely kill, they erase. Here at Dark Chronicles, we dig where history tried to bury its own screams. Persian manuscripts, Mongol records, letters from Venetian traders who escaped the firestorm. Put together, they show what really happened in those 7 days that cracked the Islamic world open. To understand the catastrophe, you have to understand the man at its center. Al-Mustasim isn't just a king. He is the caliph, the deputy of God on earth, successor to the Prophet Muhammad, ruler in a line that has lasted around 800 years. Once, that title meant armies, discipline, and fear. By 1258, it mostly means ceremony. The dynasty is old, and its confidence has gone soft. Al-Mustasim is comfortable, surrounded by courtiers who tell him what he wants to hear. He lives in luxury and believes tradition makes him untouchable. So when the Mongols move toward Baghdad, he assumes, as he always has, that the world will blink first. He trusts Allah to protect him. He can't imagine any army daring to strike the caliphate itself. Baghdad is too sacred, too important, too inevitable to fall. He is wrong. The Mongols are led by Hulagu Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan. By the time his host reaches Baghdad, they aren't just an army, they are a storm. They've already destroyed more than 40 Persian cities, crushed forces far larger than their own, and left skull piles outside the ruins as warnings. Rivers have run black with ash behind them. Now they stand before the richest city on earth. Hulagu sends a letter. The historian Atta Malik Juvaini preserves its meaning. Surrender and live. Resist and your city becomes dust. Your palaces burn, your family suffers, your name is erased. Al-Mustasim reads it and laughs. He tells his court, "These barbarians don't know who they speak to. I am the caliph. God will not abandon me." On January 29th, 1258, the siege begins. This is no ordinary assault. The Mongols bring Chinese engineers with gunpowder, rockets, and siege machines Baghdad has never faced. Day and night, the walls are hammered. The sky shakes with impact. Stones burst from the battlements. Towers tilt and crumble. The defenders fight bravely, but bravery can't stop an enemy that has turned warfare into a science. By February 5th, the walls break. By the 10th, resistance is finished. And on February 13th, Hulagu walks into the throne room. Al-Mustasim is forced to kneel. His golden robes are torn. His turban, the symbol of divine authority, lies in the dust. The man who trusted heaven now looks painfully mortal. He begs for mercy. Hulagu studies him like prey, then asks, "Where is your God now?" The caliph's lips move in silent prayer, but no answer comes. Hulagu says, "You loved gold. Let's see if gold can feed you." The treasury is dragged in, centuries of wealth heaped into glittering mountains. Then the soldiers force al-Mustasim to eat it. Coins shoved between his teeth, gold pressed into his mouth, silver ground against his gums until his teeth crack. When he tries to refuse, they beat him until he swallows. He is not allowed to faint, not allowed to die. Not yet. When they finally stop, his stomach is ruined and swollen with metal, his breathing shallow, his eyes glassy with shock. But this is only the doorway. Hulagu wants the family brought in so the caliph understands exactly what it means for a dynasty to end. Al-Mustasim has 3 sons and 4 daughters. Somewhere beyond those doors, they can hear the chaos. Boots on stone, shouted orders in a language they don't understand. The city outside burning. The caliph can't look away. Hulagu makes sure of that. The first dragged forward is the eldest daughter, Princess Fatima. She is 27, celebrated across the Islamic world for her beauty and her mind. She studied philosophy, spoke 5 languages, and wrote poetry read from Cairo to Damascus. She was raised to believe knowledge could save the world. Now she is shoved to her knees before her father, in a room that smells of smoke and fresh blood. Mongol custom demanded special treatment for highborn captives. Special meant spectacle. Hulagu orders her robes removed. Fatima refuses, so the soldiers tear them away. Rashid al-Din, writing later, cannot stomach the full description. He records only that what was done to her was done before her father's eyes, and when it ended, she was no longer alive. Other accounts are clearer. A Venetian merchant later writes what survivors whispered. Fatima is assaulted by multiple men, one after another, while her father is forced to watch. When she dies, her body is thrown outside the palace for dogs to feed on. Pause on that. A princess, a poet, a scholar, reduced to a trophy of cruelty by conquerors who see libraries as kindling. And her father, the caliph, sits helpless, watching the world he believed eternal collapse in front of him. But the night isn't over. After Fatima, Hulagu calls for the sons, and the caliph knows what comes next. He just doesn't know how long he'll be forced to endure it. The 3 sons of al-Mustasim are dragged into the throne room next. They're young, too young to understand that history has already shut the door behind them. Yesterday, they were heirs to an empire. Today, they stand chained in a palace that belongs to someone else. The eldest, Prince Mubarak, is 23. The middle son, Prince Ahmed, is 21. The youngest, Prince Ali, is 14, still half a child, pulled forward into a room slick with fear and stained with what they've just seen. Hulagu looks at them the way a butcher looks at livestock. Not angry, not rushed, just measuring, deciding, already certain of the ending. He asks them the same question he asked their father. Where is your God now? For a heartbeat, the princes don't answer. The world has flipped so fast it feels unreal. Prince Mubarak steps forward first. Maybe it's courage, maybe it's pride. Maybe it's the last spark in a life built on certainty. He says, Allah will punish you for this. Hulagu nods slowly, like a teacher acknowledging a student's reply. Then he gives a quiet command. There is a Mongol rule recorded by Juvaini and others, that royal blood must not be spilled openly. Whether it's superstition or fear of a curse, they believe letting a king's blood soak into the earth brings misfortune. So they kill royalty without shedding blood. For these 3 princes, Hulagu chooses one of the oldest methods in the Mongol arsenal, the method of the carpet. Heavy rugs are brought in. The princes are wrapped inside them, tight enough that they can't struggle, tight enough that their chests can barely rise. Their voices are swallowed into the wool, turning into muffled, desperate cries. Then the carpets are laid flat on the marble floor, and the horsemen ride over them again and again and again. Rashid al-Din writes that the sound wasn't a clean snap. It was like wood breaking in slow, ugly pieces, bones collapsing under hooves, flesh crushed into stone. The cries thin out, then lose their humanity, then vanish. Al-Mustasim sits frozen. He doesn't lunge. He doesn't scream. He doesn't beg. Not because he doesn't want to, because nothing is left in him that still believes begging matters. His sons are dead, and Hulagu still isn't finished. There are 3 daughters remaining: Princess Zainab, 25, Princess Qadia, 20, and little Princess Aisha, 12, small enough that her bracelets still slide down her wrists like she's playing dress-up in a world that has turned into a nightmare. For these girls, Hulagu decides a bloodless death is too gentle. Mongol practice often spared high-born women from execution, but not from fate. They were spoils, not for common soldiers, reserved for generals and nobles, living trophies to remind the conquered that the Mongols didn't just take your land, they took your future. Zainab and Qadia are seized first. Hulagu gives them away like rewards for loyal service. They are dragged out of Baghdad and into the endless steppe, thousands of miles away from the gardens and libraries of their childhood. They will live in felt tents among people who do not speak Arabic, who do not read, who do not build cities. Their captors can't pronounce their names, and soon those names will disappear. A Mongol document uncovered centuries later briefly mentions 2 Arab women of high birth given to the general Kitbuka after Baghdad's conquest. And then nothing. No record after that. No graves, no poems, no children who carried the Abbasid bloodline into ink. They don't die on paper. They simply stop existing. But little Aisha isn't handed over. Hulagu keeps her for himself, not as a concubine, but as proof. A living sign that even a caliph's bloodline can be bent into Mongol shape. He forces her into Mongol clothing, forces her to speak Mongolian, forces her to abandon her name. A Persian chronicler decades later tells of meeting an elderly woman in Tabriz who claimed she was Aisha. She would have been around 80 by then, bent with age, her Arabic broken by a foreign accent she never chose. She barely remembered Baghdad, but she remembered the night her family died. She remembered